Welcome to episode 6 of the Pittsburgh Philharmonic Podcast. My name is Benjamin May. I'm principal bass, and today we will meet the composers that you will be hearing on Sunday's concert, Mother's Day, May 10th, 4 o'clock. I'm here with Jake Pieszak, this year's Young Composer Competition winner with the Pittsburgh Philharmonic. His piece, The Village and the Hero's Last Stand, is going to be performed on our upcoming Mother's Day concert. Jake is not only a composer, but also a violinist, and he's currently studying engineering, so I'm really interested to hear how all of that comes together in his music. Okay, so let's start with, when did you first become interested in composing?
So back in high school, my orchestra teacher would take us to these events called PMEA. And it was kind of like it was a regional thing where you would go and compete in your individual orchestra or in your individual instrument in an orchestra. And that was kind of my first time hearing orchestral music. And after that, I kind of started listening to it on my own. And then after that, I kind of, a few years later, around the end of my junior year in high school, I downloaded notation software and I just started playing around with it, and kind of everything grew from there.
Just curious about your violin. Did that lead you into writing music in any way?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what led me to be exposed to all the orchestral music, getting to play with, the Butler Symphony Orchestra, the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, and a bunch of different like regional orchestras around the area, and then including my high school orchestra. It's kind of all accumulated to me being able to do all this composition.
Were you writing any music even before your formal training?
So yeah, I kind of junior years whenever I picked it up. And then I messed around with it. It was the end of my junior years when I first downloaded the software. I messed around with it for a summer-ish. And then I started writing a piece for our school orchestra. That's the first piece that I ever had performed, was for the Seneca Valley High School Orchestra. And during that time, I kind of studied scores for string parts and kind of taught myself there for a while, just to like learn enough so that I could write for that. And then after that, I studied a lot of orchestral scores, Mahler and Strauss and things, individuals such as that, and kind of taught myself orchestral scoring, and then decided to, a little bit later down the road, decided to write for this competition.
Excellent. So let's talk about your piece, The Village and the Hero's Last Stand. So what was the inspiration behind the idea or the title?
Yeah, so I've always been inspired by Strauss's tone poems. They're some of my favorite works of all time. And I kind of have a thing where all the pieces that I write, I want to write them about something. It kind of helps me decide where to take the musical line next. It helps me when I'm composing to kind of have maybe a story or an idea backing what I'm doing. So I kind of decided that for this competition, the people, if I won it, the people that would be there would be friends and family, and maybe individuals that haven't listened to Strauss's tone poems or tone poems in general, and don't really know the idea behind it. So I figured I would choose maybe a simple story to back the piece with. So the story behind The Village and the Hero's Last Stand it's very simple. It's a hero and an evil king, and then there's a village. The village is being attacked by the evil king, and the music kind of works through the emotions that the village feels and the timeline of, the village preparing for attack, learning of their attack, and, panicking, and then the hero stepping up to defend, and then obviously the fight scene. And then at the very end, the evil king being defeated. but in his last move, stabbing the hero as well. And then in the end of the piece, the recovery of the village, and it kind of turning a new leaf and remembering their hero. Kind of a simple story, nothing very complicated to it, so that maybe the audience could follow along better. So I kind of had that in mind while writing, just trying to encompass that story and make it as simple for the audience to understand as possible, while still being, a complex and interesting piece.
One of my questions on my list was, were you influenced by film music? And it sounds like what you're describing is kind of like that.
Yeah.
You're composing us in a way a soundtrack for a story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You could most likely put picture to my music.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So, what is it like actually hearing your piece performed by a real orchestra?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun being kind of surrounded by the sound. When I was, sitting out there during rehearsal, it's very interesting to finally hear it. The software that I use has a MIDI platform, so you can kind of get a general idea of what it might sound like. But always hearing the piece in person and hearing it played by the orchestra it's just so much cooler, and it's just always more of an incredible thing. And also the MIDI software is the exact same every time. So, I hear the same thing over and over when I listen to it. But hearing, the variations, obviously, of a bunch of individuals playing it, it's always incredible. Yeah, so it's awesome.
Was there anything that surprised you when you heard it live for the first time?
Um, I mean, for the most part, everything sounded pretty similar to the notation software, just, a little bit different when it comes to the timing of things. Nothing really jumped out to me. Obviously, the concert hall's a little bit dead when it comes to sounds, so some of the horn and woodwind parts were a little bit quieter than uh, they normally would be. But I mean, everything else, it sounded very balanced and sounded incredible.
One of my questions was actually, were there any challenges in getting the piece to work the way you wanted? And you basically just answered my question.
Yeah, yeah,
Dealing with the acoustics of
yeah,
the
the
hall and all that.
balance. Hmm.
Those are all things that you have to factor in. So
Yeah.
you're studying engineering. I'm just kind of curious. Does your approach, like, do you think of yourself as an intuitive approach or more analytical when you compose?
I definitely have a process, kind of deciding the story that I'm trying to compose before I start writing music. And then a lot of my themes and ideas tend to be patterns. It just kind of it works with my mathematical engineering brain just a little bit more. Um, but yeah, I would say that it's more process oriented and pattern oriented, instead of trying to display an emotional idea or a story. So it's kind of an interesting approach. Whereas, well, I'm not sure exactly about Strauss because I've never met him, but his music doesn't seem to be very pattern oriented. It seems to be very emotional and kind of um, spur of the idea within his music. But I tend to lean on the more pattern side, so I think that kind of gives me a unique voice in the tone poem idea of things.
So, at what point in the process do you know that it's working?
Um, I normally all of kind of sat at my computer for a few hours, just being completely lost in the music, and I'll kind of wake up from that, or want to go get something to eat and realize that I've been sitting in the same spot thinking only of what I'm writing for the last 3 or 4 hours, and that's how I kind of know this is working. I'm kind of I'm in the right place. I'm doing the right thing. The ideas are kind of, flowing out of me. I'm not forcing anything. Um, and everything's just working.
So, as an engineer, do you see any connection between engineering and composing?
Um, yeah, composing is actually pretty mathematical. People wouldn't think that a bunch of notes on a piece of paper is mathematical, but it is. There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of things you need to account for when composing. It's almost like it's a really big word problem with a bunch of different answers, and you have to come up with one solution. There's not a right or a wrong answer. Engineering's a pretty similar way, right? You'll be handed a drawing from an architect, or you'll have to, design a bridge of some sort. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. There's 100 different ways to do it. And there's not one right answer, but you have to come up with a creative way to get what you think is the best answer. So they kind of have the same general idea of it's a big solution with a bunch of answers, and you use kind of some creativity and math to figure out how to best solve that answer.
Almost sounds like you're describing solving a puzzle.
Yeah, that's what it feels like a lot of times. Yeah.
And music, I'm not an engineer, but I'm a musician, and many times
Mhm.
to solve certain obstacles in the music, it really feels like, and like you said, there's not one particular way to solve it.
Right.
There might be
Yeah.
5 different ways, and I just have to pick what's the most elegant solution,
Hmm.
for the problem. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. Do you plan on continuing composing going forward?
Oh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. That's good. Are there like other kinds of music that you're interested in exploring?
Obviously, maybe for like films, orchestral scores for films would be something that I would be interested in exploring in the future. But I'm very orchestrally heavily oriented. I kind of just love the sound. I've been in love with it for a while, so that's kind of where my heart lies.
Well, that's a good place for it to be. Um, so yeah, I'm just going to kind of wrap up a little bit.
Of course.
What do you hope that the audience feels when they hear your piece?
I hope that they are kind of uh, maybe inspired by by being able to hear the story in the music. I know that when you mention classical music or orchestra, individuals just think of really simple pieces that can be boring to a lot of people. And I really hope that this kind of opens people's minds to, okay, classical music isn't, just this boring, repetitive, maybe like a dance or something. It's not just for rich old people, it's a storytelling thing. You can explain emotions and ideas that you can explain it in a different way that you can't explain in words. You can't explain it, through talking to somebody. You can only explain it in this particular way through music. So I'm kind of hoping that it opens people's their eyes and their ideas about classical music.
You really touched on the universal aspect of music.
Right.
I always like to
Hmm.
think that it's the language of emotion. So
Yeah.
you could take, let's say, your piece and go to a completely different country where no one speaks English,
Hmm.
and they're going to get it right away. They're going to
Right.
know
Yeah.
the emotional
Hmm.
intent of what your storytelling. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that I love about music. Like if
Yeah.
I love Russian music, for example.
Right.
I've tried to learn Russian, and it's very difficult. And you know, but I know 100% for sure when I look at Russian music, I know immediately what to do.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
crystal
It's a
clear.
universal language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like I'm right at home, even though I
Right.
could never have a conversation with the composer, but I can
Right. Of
certainly
course.
play the
Yeah.
music. So I love that
Hmm.
about music.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
sounds like you've touched on that.
Yeah. I'm very, very excited for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to the concert. It's been incredible so far.
Yeah,
And
congratulations on winning. That's a really big
yeah,
deal.
thank you. Thank you. And yeah, just hope everybody enjoys.
Oh, I'm sure they will. All right. Well, thank
Awesome.
you for your time. And I know you're a busy guy, and you just wrapped up a busy year at school. And
Yes, I did.
so get some rest, and we'll see you on Sunday,
All right.
4 o'clock, Mother's Day. Don't miss it. It's going to be a great concert.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah. You too.
All right.
Ralph Vaughan Williams was born in 1872 in the English countryside. He grew up in a family that valued education, literature, and music, and those influences stayed with him throughout his life. He studied at the Royal College of Music in London and later continued his training in Berlin and Paris. These experiences gave him a broad musical foundation and exposed him to a range of European styles. Early in his career, he developed a strong interest in English folk music. Vaughan Williams was known to travel with a notebook, writing down folk songs as he heard them, sometimes from people who had never sung them outside their local community. Many of these songs had been carried forward through memory and shared across generations. That interest in traditional music extended into his work with church music. Vaughan Williams served as the musical editor of the English Hymnal, published in 1906. He contributed original tunes and arranged existing ones, and several of those hymns are still widely sung today. That experience shaped his sense of melody and phrasing. You can hear it in the natural flow of his lines and in the way his music unfolds over time. During the First World War, Vaughan Williams served as an ambulance driver and later as an artillery officer. He was already in his 40s at the time. The war left a lasting impression on him, and its impact can be felt in the reflective quality of much of his later work. Over the years, he became a central figure in English music. His work is often associated with a strong sense of place and continuity. His Symphony No. 5 was written during the Second World War. It reflects a composer with a long perspective, shaped by experience and a deep engagement with his musical language. Despite his reputation as a major composer, he maintained a relatively modest lifestyle and remained closely connected to everyday musical traditions. He continued composing well into his later years, often revising and refining his music with great care. He died in 1958, leaving behind a body of work that remains closely connected to landscape, memory, and time.
Camille Saint-Saëns was born in Paris in 1835. His musical ability became clear at a very early age. He began playing the piano as a child and gave public performances while still very young. As a child, Saint-Saëns reportedly offered to perform any of Beethoven's piano sonatas from memory during one of his early concerts. By his teenage years, he was already recognized as a serious musician. He studied at the Paris Conservatory, where he developed strong skills in composition, organ, and piano. His technical command and attention to detail became defining characteristics of his work. Saint-Saëns spent many years as an organist in Paris. He gained a reputation for his improvisation, and his playing was widely admired by other musicians of his time. Franz Liszt once described him as one of the greatest organists in the world, particularly praising his skill as an improviser. His interests extended beyond music. He was engaged with literature, science, and travel. He traveled extensively throughout his life, spending time in places like Egypt and Algeria, where he often composed during the winter months. These experiences broadened his perspective and occasionally influenced his compositions. He composed across many genres, and several of his works remain widely recognized. The Carnival of the Animals is one of his most popular pieces, known for its vivid character and humor. Although The Carnival of the Animals became one of his most popular works, he chose not to allow most of it to be performed publicly during his lifetime. Dance Macabre and the Organ Symphony are also frequently performed and have become part of the standard repertoire. Throughout his career, he remained committed to clarity and structure in his music. His works are carefully shaped with a strong sense of balance and direction. His Cello Concerto No. 1, written in 1872, reflects that approach. The piece moves forward with focus, and the relationship between the soloist and orchestra is clearly defined. Saint-Saëns continued composing into his later years. He died in 1921, having witnessed major changes in the musical world around him. His music continues to be performed widely, valued for its craftsmanship and clarity. Join us for an unforgettable evening with the Pittsburgh Philharmonic. On Sunday, May 10th, the orchestra takes the stage at the Masonic Center, located at 3579 Masonic Way in Pittsburgh. The program will feature Ralph Vaughan Williams' Symphony No. 5, a deeply expressive and serene masterpiece of the 20th century repertoire. We'll also present the Saint-Saëns Cello Concerto No. 1, performed by the winner of our Young Artist competition, showcasing the next generation of exceptional talent. And in celebration of new music, the concert will include the world premiere of The Village and the Hero's Last Stand, a powerful new work by the Young Composers competition winner, Jake Pieszak. In addition to the concert, we're proud to continue our commitment to music education through our annual Student Side-by-Side program. Students entering grades 8 through 12 are invited to audition for the opportunity to rehearse and perform alongside members of the Pittsburgh Philharmonic. The audition will take place on May 16th, with applications due by May 10th. We hope you'll join us for this inspiring evening of music and community. Visit our website for tickets and more information.